history of Mephisto.
What's up, my comic comrades? Today we break down the devil of the Marvel Universe, Mephisto. He is one of the many powerful Hell Lords in the Marvel Universe who, in addition to long moonlit walks along the Lake of Fire, loves tormenting souls in his hellish landscape. He's also a major character that previously seemed almost inevitable to be introduced into the MCU. But now, with all the changes, who freaking knows? Well, if they're not going to do it, we'll do it ourselves. So sit back and relax as we're about to break down everything you need to know about Marvel's most infamous demon. Mephisto was created by Stan Lee and John Buscema, first appearing in Silver Surfer issue 3 in 1968. That's right, the first time we ever saw him, he went up against the Silver Surfer. Mephisto isn't technically the devil, aka Satan or Lucifer, but he pretty much acts exactly like him. He's a demon lord who's after as many souls of the living that he can get his demonic hands on. And he's willing to cheat, steal, and lie to get all the souls he can. And being a supernatural demonic being, he has incredible power. For the most part, only characters on par with the likes of Doctor Strange are able to combat his skills, but we'll talk more about that in powers and abilities. As for now, let's take a look at his origin. Okay, simply put, the Hell Lords were created from the massive evil energy left behind when Demogorg, the God Eater, killed the Elder Gods. Mephisto was created alongside Thog, Lucifer, Satanish, and more. He's been around for eons and he ruled Earth way before the first celestial host stepped foot on the planet. Mephisto was actually the first Hell Lord to be created from the wake of mystical energy and is easily one of, if not the most powerful. He later drew inspiration from the biblical concept of the devil and governs a fiery pocket dimension he refers to as Hell or Hades, though not the actual hell of Christian belief, and makes contracts with mortals which are often not the fairest to claim their souls. You see, Mephisto strategically labels his realm as Hell to exploit the earthly notion of a single absolute evil being, commonly known as Satan, who rules such a place. He takes on a visual appearance resembling the traditional concept of the devil. However, it's unclear if this is his true form or an adapted guise to align with human perceptions, as he can take any
They can make him a scary.
Now, with that said, interestingly, some legends give an alternate origin, suggesting that Mephisto might have been the initial deviant created by the Celestials, challenging the notion that he was originally a demon. No matter which origin you want to go with, one thing is for sure, he is not a demon or devil in the traditional sense, but rather an extra-dimensional being who rules a pocket dimension that resembles the hell we've all become familiar with. In short, Mephisto has allowed and even fed on the misconception that he is Satan, but he is not Lucifer. His rule consists of himself, subordinate demons in his service, and the astral forms of specific deceased humans. These spirits are trapped within demonic bodies, magically altered to mirror their mortal forms. Now, while his primary focus is enslaving human souls, he also extends his influence to extraterrestrial beings present on Earth. But with that said, we're going to move on to story arcs and publication history. But first, you guys got to see this insane Optimus Prime model kit from today's sponsor look like this. That ain't no kid's toy, and we're drooling over this beast. From the original Transformers G1 TV series of the 80s, meet the biggest Optimus Prime model kit ever produced. When complete, this epic take on the leader of the Autobots clocks in at 31 inches tall, weighing 28.5 pounds, and is made of over 600 parts. It's also officially licensed from Hasbro and made from die-cast metal to provide a museum quality model. But here's the thing, it's fully posable and has a ton of electronic features. I'm talking articulating joints that can be posed, his hands can point, clench his fist, or hold his blaster and energon axe. Optimus's eyes light up in 6 different modes along with his matrix of leadership, and his faceplate moves in sync with multiple sound effects and music. The model is complete in 2 months. Needed. Okay, to kick off Mephisto's story arcs, we're going to go back to his first appearance in Silver Surfer issue 3 in the story called The Power and the Prize. In the issue, we see that Mephisto has been behind the scenes for quite some time, but finally decides to introduce himself.
It's always Mephisto behind the scenes. We learn that Mephisto's
plan is to corrupt and take the soul of the former Herald of Galactus, the Silver Surfer, which he sees as the ultimate challenge because of how good he is. Pure at heart, if you will. So with the Silver Surfer recently being trapped on Earth and struggling with the complexities of human emotions and desires, Mephisto does what any demonic entity would do, and that is capitalize on Silver Surfer's vulnerability by presenting him with illusions and temptations.
He might be in the
exploring
Fantastic
complex
Four
themes like temptation and morality. But of course, by the end of the issue, the Silver Surfer's pure heart wins out, with Mephisto even saying on the second to last panel of the story, "For the first time in ages, I have drunk the draught of bleak defeat. So be you gone, for your very sight offends my regal eyes. But since time is endless, we shall meet again, and then shall the Silver Surfer fall." This is his very first appearance in story, so it's definitely one to check out. But jumping around a bit, we have one very controversial Mephisto story that I remember vividly coming out in the early 2000s, and that is the Spider-Man One More Day storyline. Now this story is very controversial among Spider-Man and Marvel fans, and you're about to see why. You see, once Peter Parker told the world that he was Spider-Man Spider-Man during the Civil War storyline, his enemies started coming after the ones he loved, and they eventually got to Aunt May, who they shot. As Aunt May laid on her deathbed in critical condition at the hospital, she had an unwelcome guest. Enter Mephisto, who basically showed up and told Peter, hey, I could save your Aunt May and make everyone forget that you're Spider-Man. But in return, I want you and Mary Jane's marriage. Meaning, if Peter and MJ agreed to let Mephisto save Aunt May, Mephisto would rewrite history so the two would no longer be married because the two would have never been married. It simply would have never happened, effectively erasing several years of Spider-Man's continuity. And we learn that Mephisto wants to take away their marriage because it's the rarest love of all. Pure, unconditional, and made holy in the eyes of the one he hates most. Saying a love like yours comes about once in a millennium, and to take that away from him, to deny him, is a victory like none other imaginable. Yet again referring to God, his supposed rival, when in fact we know this is all just manipulation, playing Satan to them so he can just get what he wants. And it indeed works. Mary Jane forces Peter to agree to save Aunt May, at which point Mephisto rewrites the timeline so the two of them were never married, and everyone forgets that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Again, this story was and still has been hated on for quite some time, as it erased several years of Spider-Man's story building and development for him and Mary J. But no matter how you slice it, it's crazy that Mephisto is the one responsible for one of the most controversial decisions made in modern comic book history. Moving along, we have another one of my favorites, and that
one
of
the
course
only
is
time they were
Triumph
actually
and Torment.
together.
We actually dove into the storyline a little bit ago when we gave you the history of Doctor Doom, and that's because the story revolves around Doctor Doom and Doctor Strange teaming up to fight Mephisto. If you didn't know, Mephisto was actually the one responsible for taking Doom's mom, quite literally holding her soul captive in hell. And every Midsummer's Eve, Doctor Doom tries to save his mother from Mephisto, going so far as to make a machine to do so. Well, after years of failed attempts, he decides he needs some help and seeks the one and only Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange, to help him retrieve his mother from Mephisto. So the story focuses on Doctor Strange and Doom teaming up, going to hell, fighting Mephisto to try and retrieve the soul of Doom's mother. Mephisto then finds them trespassing in his domain and tells them nothing in Hades long escapes the notice of Mephisto. Pitiful fools, I reserve a very special circle of my kingdom for trespassers. But you are hardly ordinary trespassers, are you? He points at Doctor Strange, saying, I did not think you were foolish enough to enter my domain once more, sorcerer. I shall not allow you to escape this time. And Doom, I knew you would find your way here eventually. I'm impressed that you duped Strange into guiding you. Strange tells Mephisto, I am no one's dupe. I accompany Doom willingly. Doom then says, we demand to battle for the freedom of my mother's soul by my right of previous challenge. With this, Mephisto then laughs at him, saying, you demand by your right? My most sincere apologies. I thought you were mere mortals. I see now that you must be jesters of the most cosmic order. At this point, all hell breaks loose, and long story short, Doctor Doom ends up betraying Strange, which isn't shocking in the least, offering Strange his soul in exchange for his mother's. But Doom's mom is not happy about this, saying, with such a betrayal, you forfeited your own soul. Doom grabs his mother by the hand, saying, had I 1,000 souls, I would have gladly sacrificed them all for you. But his mom refuses to go with it, saying, I will not be a party to betrayal. I will not go with you, traitor. She continues to say, this is worse than damnation. You are no son of mine, as she turns to stone. At this point, Doctor Strange frees himself, and him and Doom tag team Mephisto to escape hell. Strange, being the good guy that he is, feels bad for Doom, even though he betrayed him, but Doom is not having any pity, and says, my mother's soul is finally free. With Strange saying, yes, but only at the cost of her love, or did you make that sacrifice willingly? It's a brilliant story, and I would say a must read. And the last arc we're gonna mention, but certainly not least, is probably the most iconic story Mephisto has been in, and that's because it's simply one of the most iconic stories in all of comic history, the Infinity Gauntlet. Now, we all know the story. Thanos seeks the Infinity Gems and Gauntlet to grant himself godlike powers to enforce his will wherever he sees fit.
He sold his soul too.
As far as Mephisto is concerned, he allies himself with Thanos, serving as an advisor and ally to the Mad Titan. Along the way, Thanos, driven by his love for death, uses the Infinity Gems to erase half of all life in the universe with the infamous snap of his fingers. This obviously causes cosmic conflict. Many of Earth's and the cosmos' mightiest heroes attempt to undo what Thanos did. And we learn the reason why Mephisto became the advisor and right-hand man to Thanos, so to speak, is because
imagine if they tied in Mephisto like this after Thanos snapped.
His desire for more souls and power. Like I've been saying throughout this episode, all Mephisto wants is souls, and he saw an opportunity to exploit Thanos' action to get those souls and join the chaos and destruction. There are way more Mephisto stories to talk about, and I'll give you some reading recommendations later, but now it's time for powers and abilities. Mephisto, being the extra-dimensional demon that he is, has a ton of powers and abilities. First and foremost, he possesses reality manipulation, meaning he can manipulate and alter reality much like he did to Spider-Man. Spider-Man, erasing his marriage to Mary Jane and making everyone forget that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. So again, he could change the fabric of the world around him. He also possesses soul manipulation and bargains to trap and collect souls in his extra-dimensional realm for his own evil purposes. Dude is also immortal, not susceptible to conventional means of death, making him one of the most formidable and oldest beings in the Marvel Universe. He also has the ability to shapeshift. Usually he takes the form of a demonic figure resembling a devil or Satan, but can disguise himself as anyone he wants. Mephisto has the ability to teleport between dimensions and pretty much anywhere else he wants. He also has telepathic abilities, enabling him to read and manipulate the thoughts of others. As a powerful demonic entity, Mephisto has extensive knowledge of the mystic arts, allowing him to cast all kinds of dark spells, create mystical barriers, and all around tap into the supernatural, which makes him an incredible opponent against the likes of even the Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange. A very useful ability that he has is he can influence people's emotions, being able to manipulate their desires,
gaslighter, that's
their
what it
weaknesses
is.
and vulnerabilities. And lastly,
you.
he rules his dimensional realm, which he refers to as Hell or Hades, and holds control over demons beneath him and the tormented souls he's captured. All in all, Mephisto is one of the most dangerous forces in Marvel. With that said, let's move on to some reading recommendations. Check out the previously mentioned The Power and the Prize story in Silver Surfer issue 3, the Damnation storyline where the Midnight Suns face off against Mephisto, the Spider-Man One More Day story, Daredevil 266, the Heart of Darkness story, Silver Surfer Judgment Day, Triumph and Torment, and lastly, but certainly not least, the Infinity Gauntlet. That should be more than enough to get everyone started. But there you have it, the history of Mephisto, a character that we're probably going to see pop up in the MCU very soon, perhaps played by Sacha Baron Cohen, which I think would be a fantastic pick. But other than that, we'll see you next time when I talk about all things comics.
Bye bye. Now be sure to subscribe to the video, to the channel.